Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. You all know me, but I'm Heather Cook. I am the Director of Marketing Brands at peermusic. And this is the case study in sync, marketing, and games. And this is a part of the music program, and it's also part of the Creators Conference. So we may have some folks from the other side over there coming and hanging out with us today. So welcome to everybody. We're glad you're here. As everybody knows, put your comments in the chat and we'll try to get to those either during the conversation or towards the end. So I'm going to introduce my lovely panelists, going to go around the room, and let's start with Annie, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name's Anny Colvin. I'm the head of music at a trailer music supervision company called Jax. We do a lot of movie marketing. I'm also head of music for a larger music campus called MakeMake, and we do original content, advertising, design, all sorts of stuff. But most of the work that you guys see from me is movie trailers. Hello.
Awesome. Hello, and David, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Lapinsky. I lead the music department at Gray Advertising in New York and Townhouse worldwide.
Awesome. Great agency. David, do you want to mention just a couple brands that you work with over there?
Sure. We have a large roster in New York, and we also do a significant amount of work with some of the other branches of Gray Global, but mostly Volvo, a lot of P&G, Gillette, Pantene, Bose. Applebee's is a big client for us, do a lot of commercial sync for Applebee's, so very unique, diverse roster.
Very cool. And Brandon.
Hey, Brandon Young. I run the music department for Activision Blizzard Games. 17-year veteran with the company now. I started the department back in 2003. Some of our titles are big ones that you would probably know. Call of Duty. We did all the Guitar Hero franchise games. World of Warcraft, Overwatch. It's a pretty broad roster of games, and we're a global company.
Awesome. So I want to get into some of the questions, and then, like I said, we're going to get into these videos very quickly. I want to dissect them and figure out how did you guys make the decision about selecting the music that was placed in it. We may get to see some various options of what you had temped in, whatnot. So first question I want to ask is just about your process. Like, what are some of those key things, tone, tempo, theme, that are really important you guys want to touch on for your various mediums that's important when you're selecting a song? Free to jump in.
First.
Go for it, Annie.
I will, because I always talk first, because I hate silence. Well, it differs from every project. So depending on who your main characters are, who you're trying to market to, if it's a comedy, is it a drama, and I'm obviously speaking towards movies and movie marketing, those tones, that pacing, whether you want a female vocalist or a male vocalist, it all depends. So it's hard to say exactly what we're looking for. We just released yesterday the Borat trailer that came out, so something that we worked on. And that sort of style of music, which it was us sourcing, original Kazakh instruments and having people play it, reaching out to bands that are, based in Eastern Europe and having them work on stuff for us, would obviously be not the same thing that we are looking for when we worked on the Tenet campaign for Warner Brothers, which was obviously a lot different, more like vibey industrial music. And we worked a lot with the composer of the film, Ludwig Göransson. So lots of different stuff, just depending on the film that we're working on.
Interesting. How about Rob? How about you? Is there, like, when it comes to that sort of thing, tone, theme, tempo, what's really important for the work you're doing?
Who did you direct that to?
Brandon, for you.
Oh yeah. So for us, it's it really varies by project, right? Like, we just released the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 reboot, and for something like that, we used a band called DZ Death Rays. It's it's more on the punk rock side. Came out really cool, but then when you're doing something with a franchise like Call of Duty, we just know that our demographic really falls more hip hop or metal. So over the years, we've just worked with massive caliber artists to sort of, you know, fit that brand. I believe you have 2 videos that we can dig into deeper shortly when you play those. But over the years, we've worked with just some of the biggest bands out there, from Metallica to AC/DC to Led Zeppelin to Eminem. The trailers we're going to be looking at today was our Call of Duty Cold War launch trailer and our multiplayer trailer. And I can go ahead and tell you the songs that were used, or we can wait, but
Yeah,
we'll call it just 2 classic art. So for our launch trailer, we used Blue Monday by New Order, and we had Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross remix that song. Came out super cool. The game is set in the Cold War era, so we wanted to sort of give a throwback to the 80s, but with a modern vibe on it. So that's why, you know, the idea to bring in Trent and Atticus to remix it really resonated for us. And then the multiplayer trailer that we'll also look at in a few minutes is a remix of Notorious by Biggie. And we brought in a company called Pitchhammer Music, who did a fantastic job remixing it. And, you know, I think just being able to get those 2 deals done with that massive caliber of artist, when Biggie, you're dealing with an estate and what have you. So they came out fantastic, and we'll see those in a few minutes.
Well, why don't we, that's a good lead in. So why don't we show those right now? So I'll do that first one, the Black Ops Cold War. Let's share my screen here.
This war was a lie. Years of blood. Just to light the fuse of a secret war, decades in the making.
My fellow Americans, a nuclear conflict could well be mankind's last. We want to make this a more peaceful world.
5 days ago, we acquired intel. Soviet agent Perseus is in play. If he's active, something big is gonna happen. Something that could shift the balance of the Cold War.
Let's go find this shithead. Lapinsky.
Mr. President.
Is the threat real?
Yes, sir, we believe it is.
Give Mr. Adler whatever he wants. I know you won't fail us.
Pre-order a digital copy and get early access to
That's amazing.
Epic.
Came out great. We were all happy with it. I forgot to mention we had a lead in with Creedence Clearwater. So it was a pretty big deal trailer for us.
That is a big deal. Yeah. So, and can you talk to us about just the decision making that came? Like, were there any other songs you considered for that? Things that you temped in and then threw out later, and what was the reasoning?
Yeah, no, there was, we went through rounds and rounds of music. Right now, I can't even remember some of the other songs we were looking at, just because that one feels like it was a while ago, even though it just came out fairly recently. But the process for us, we have a lot of stakeholders involved. So I'm dealing with our marketing teams, our ad agency, and then our executive team up through our president. So we really try and narrow it down with the marketing team and agency to call it our top 3 or 4 to present internally. This one just had the best pacing and feel. And then once we knew we could get Trent and Atticus on board to do the remix, it just felt right. And we didn't consider anything else at that point, really, put all our focus on that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure you did a lot of trailerizing to some of that music. And we talked about that in the last panel we actually just had. Just
Yeah.
building it up, making it bigger, having that big sound to it.
Yeah, and we've been doing that quite a bit these days. I mean, I think a lot of people do that these days. But you know, when we first started getting into that, you're bringing in remixers, and really you're bringing in remixers that are doing mixes of unapproved versions. So then it's really a process you have to go through after that. You have to get the label approval, the artist approval on those new mixes, and then you have to actually do a transfer of rights from the remixer. So there's kind of a lot that goes into it. It's not always my favorite thing to do, especially when we're on a compressed schedule, but it's become the norm. It's become almost the expected norm that I feel like we're remixing almost everything these days. And luckily, now that we're doing it a lot, the labels are getting a little more comfortable with that process. At first, it was sort of a difficult process. A bit, you know, it was like pulling teeth. Once you submit a remix back to the label, they might want to push one that they have back on you that has actually, you know, been officially approved and routed through their legal team. So it's a process, but with the right lead time, you can come up with some pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I want to jump around a little bit. So I want to go over to David here real quick. And just the same question I started with earlier. I know for advertising, this is where the world I work in the most. So I know ads the best, but there has to be that right theme and tempo and feel and everything. Can you talk about that a little bit? And then we can jump into your Volvo spot that you have for us.
Sure. Yeah. So tempo and mood and kind of whether you have lyrics or not always are going to be a part of the conversation, especially when you're diving in with the creative team. You're looking at the boards, you're getting a sense of what, you know, the spot aims to communicate conceptually, but the brand's aesthetic is always important. I think most of the brands we work with have kind of a somewhat decided identity in the space that they're in, and it's for us to kind of help navigate and figure out what makes sense for them and what sort of artists pair well. And we always kind of strive to do that. But, you know, as you know, Annie and Brandon have, there's so many layers to getting through from search one to client round one to locking and shipping a spot. So the amount of tracks you ultimately might consider at one point or another, endless.
Yeah, that's amazing. What would you say Volvo's identity is then, if you're thinking about music for them?
I mean, it varies. It depends. A lot of the work we do is specifically for North America and the United States. Some of the work we do for them is global. They also have teams working on different work in Europe and different territories. I think across the board, they do tend to lean towards kind of singer-songwriter aesthetic, which you'll see in this spot. But there is definitely an interest in tracks that have some sort of place in pop culture, some sort of familiarity, recognizable, but they'll take a risk as well. It's not necessarily always the same thing. Sometimes we're in a more kind of like electronic space. Sometimes it's a blend of, you know, organic instrumentation and electronic instrumentation. If we're scoring, it can vary, but, and the brief obviously, and the narrative of the spot will play into that.
Interesting. So I'm going to queue up one of your spots. Which one would you like me to start with? We have the Volvo 60-second or 30-second.
You could do it 30, I'm sure. Point gets across.
Cool. I'm going to share that now.
Do you recall not long ago we would walk on the sidewalk all around when the wind blows, we would only hold on to let go. Blow a kiss into the sun, we need someone to lean on. Blow a kiss into the sun, all we need is somebody to lean on. All we need is someone to lean on.
It's such a beautiful song.
So we went through, I don't know how many different rounds of searches. This is kind of one of those situations where I almost like think of it as like a Venn diagram, and at the center is like the perfect song that needs to check off all of the boxes. It was decided early on that we had to have lyrics. Lyrics were going to communicate a theme of, you know, the father looking out for the daughter, caring for the next generation, which ties into a hybrid vehicle, and care for the planet. You have almost like this wish list, and we want to check off as many of these different things conceptually as possible. And I always often wonder how much of that is even communicated to the viewer in the final spot. In this situation, we didn't necessarily land on a piece of music that had, you know, existed. We found lyrics in the Lean On Major Lazer track that's oddly seemed to check off many of these boxes, and going out and producing a different kind of interpretation of the song in a different genre, but still holding on to some of the, you know, key melody and, you know, structure of the song is, you know, where we landed with this one.
And it
I
came out
noticed a little lyric change there too.
So the lyric change is also that's it's funny you point that out. So many people, like, the comments are like, they changed the lyrics. I can't believe they changed the lyrics. We didn't change the lyrics. That's a radio edit. There's a radio version that's considered the clean version of the song, where it's instead of fire a gun. Yeah, so it's funny just to see how, again, like, that existed elsewhere, but obviously it's not the most famous interpretation of the track.
So what were some of the other songs that you guys considered, or something I can play here from the list you gave me?
What's in the, I have to, what's in the list again?
There was Life Goes On, Demand. There was Dreamer by Ozzy Osbourne. Was
yeah, Dreamer by Ozzy Osbourne. That was ridiculous. That would have been kind of one of those curveballs, which I think, which probably in the grand scheme of things would have been a little bit too shocking for this brand. We did seriously consider it, and it was definitely a contender at one point. The Damned, Life Goes On, that was kind of like an example of your own taste and favorites sort of finding their way to the top of the pile, and not necessarily on the final spot. But I was really passionate about the Damned track. I thought it was kind of in a subtle way managed to touch base on the different themes, and kind of a little bit kind of unexpected still, but maybe not as unexpected as Ozzy Osbourne.
I'll play that one. Let's take a listen to that.
Maybe everybody is agreeing why it didn't get selected, but it's still my favorite.
I like it too. Like, I own a Volvo. That was totally my vibe.
Yeah, I was thinking that's a great driving song. Like, yeah.
Appreciate that.
That's a good one. And was there any others here that were like that? So that was like the second runner-up then? Like, you were just really pushing for that track?
I was pushing for that track. Everybody kind of always has a horse in the race. So I think across the team, there were a lot of favorites, and there were a lot of great songs that were in consideration at one point or another. I think the client's favorite across the board unanimously was Lean On. When we kind of pitched the idea of kind of reinterpreting that song for them, it kind of checked off all the boxes for them.
I also see a Townes Van Zandt song in here. I'll be here in the morning.
Yeah, that's another favorite of mine. But Push Hard, I'd love to get a little bit more attention on his iconic catalog. But yeah, I love the track. That was one of my favorites. A little bit tougher for foreign markets, even though this one was mostly for the US, but you know, Townes often is categorized, you know, in a country space. And I think for Volvo, it's a riskier, you know, space to play in, going for a country leaning artist.
Let's take a listen to that one. I'm curious what it sounds like with looking at that spot.
Well, there's no stronger wind than the one that blows down a lonesome railroad line. No prettier sight than looking back on a town you left behind. But there's nothing that's as real as the love that's in my mind. Close your eyes, I'll be here in the morning. Close your eyes, I'll be here for a while.
Oh, that's such a great song.
Yeah, I see, for me, again, it checked off all the boxes. You have almost like a slight sort of nod to the winds changing, the windmills, the hybrid energy in the spot. You have kind of conceptually, traveling, leaving at one place to go to another, and ultimately thinking about somebody who's important to you, which was supposed to lean into the father-daughter dynamic, kind of caring for the future generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for you on your team, I know it's you and you have two other producers there, and the decision-making process, you kind of touched on it, but who ultimately makes the decision? Are you guys the final word? Obviously the client, but.
So at the way we, handle the agency's workload across the team is mostly dedicating a producer to one's, a roster of clients. So primarily, each one of us will work with that set roster, but we do from time to time. I mean, I think when I was working on this spot, I probably pulled Kurt and Leland into the music room about 100 times to listen to different tracks, laid back to pictures. So we always have our own dialogue together, and we frequently love to kind of discuss amongst ourselves, like, hey, what are you pitching on this? What are you going to put on that? And I think it does shape the way we go forward in presenting music to our creative teams and how it ultimately ends up going up to the client. So that is the beauty of having a team to sort of springboard ideas amongst each other. But yeah, the layers ultimately are getting through your creative team and your account team. Everybody has to kind of agree that it's worth presenting to the client, vetting it from a rights standpoint, reaching out and understanding whether it may or may not be in budget, kind of having sort of that checklist, that mental checklist before you even share it with anybody. The clients will review, then the clients typically have several different rounds of people who they have to escalate their decisions to. So it can be an extensive process. So
it's a gauntlet you go through, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's one single person who ever gets to decide. It's really never that simple.
No, it's a lot of people. There's one question from the audience for you, David. Was it easy or difficult to license the cover of Link?
So that's one of those situations where you have I think there were 5 writers credited, and the splits are all over the place. So it was definitely a tricky finesse negotiation to kind of get everything, all the ducks in a row, and kind of understand who's on board, who isn't. It was tricky, but not the trickiest.
That's good. I know how that goes. It's tough. Okay, well, let's jump over to Anny. Let's look at some of your work. So you kind of touched on your process a little bit. Which trailer do you want me to play first?
Play the one, it should say teaser. I just want to show the difference between what a teaser looks like.
Okay.
How you can use a lot more lyrics in a teaser, and then a trailer where you got to tell a lot more story, and then you can't use many lyrics. So start with the teaser.
Tell us the difference between teaser trailer. What is that?
Teaser is usually the first piece of marketing that a movie will want to put out. It's considered a tease, so it's usually much vibier. You'll kind of get to introduce sort of the main characters, but it's not really important to get plot or story across. It's more about to get people excited and to sort of introduce a film. I personally prefer working on teasers because you get to do a lot more musically. You'll get this negative feedback from clients, but they can sometimes play like music videos, which for a music person in a film context, that's like my favorite thing to do. We all want that. We all want the music to shine. We want it to be the star, even though in film it's usually supposed to be a balance. So teasers can be a lot more experimental with music. You can use a lot more lyrics, and the song does a lot of heavy lifting about explaining what emotions you want to be feeling, and really sets the tone for a whole campaign. So you'll be seeing the Joker teaser. And I'm sorry, I'm doing such an old one, but I can't show any new stuff because it's not out yet.
It's all
So,
good.
yeah,
These are amazing. So I'm going to share this teaser right now.
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by.
What?
If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile. If you
What's so funny?
just
Freak!
Gotham has lost its way. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a comedy.
if you just smile.
Wow.
fun.
That was incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can talk a little bit about this in this process.
Yes, go for it.
So I would say sometimes in movie marketing, because we want everybody to go see it. We're trying to get butts in seats. So there is a little bit more of a 4-quadrant approach and what I like to call Captain Obvious music, right? So can you call it music supervision when you use Smile for a song about Joker, right? It's kind of leans itself in there. But for us to find a version that felt a little bit more dated. We used the Jimmy Durante version that had some like really interesting female choir in it. And then as Brandon was talking about, we did a remix and basically a cover. The whole back end section is an instrumental version of the song. So, nowadays working with producers and composers and remixers, we have a lot more flexibility with making the songs work for us and how we want to use them. We don't have assets for something like this. We're not going to get an a cappella. We're not going to have an instrumental because the songs are so old. And we wanted that kind of tone, that vintage flavor to it, because the movie sort of was couched in this delusional guy's brain who, really was pretty truncated in his feelings and in his emotions and sort of how he saw the world. But as you can see, we got to let the song really breathe. We get to hear like a few verses and a chorus in there because we are just kind of catching a vibe. We're not needing to tell you who the bad guy is, who the good guy is. Here's the plot. Here's what getting to a climax. Who's going to win, who's going to lose. We have to do those in trailers to get a little bit more of the plot, but in a teaser, you can be more vibey. So yeah, we had a lot of different songs we kind of considered initially, but we were all pretty on board with this version. We worked with a sort of composer producer company called Pusher, I'm sure you guys probably know them. They have some amazing composers that we work with. So we meaning my music team and then my producing team and creative team, we all kind of got on board pretty quickly with this song. But our gauntlet is the marketing team from the studio and then the stakeholders within the film. So we have the director, we have the producer, and occasionally family members of said directors, or if there's a big personality on the film, sometimes they'll want to weigh in. So this definitely we got some funny feedback from famous people that we had no idea were even involved in the film whatsoever. But
really, what kind of feedback did you get?
This specific teaser, someone's girlfriend said that we were trying too hard. So that was great. It ended up working out. So it's
yeah,
no, it was fun. So if you want to play the trailer now, you'll see it's a similar kind of tone and vibe, but we use way less lyrics because we have a lot of storytelling to tell.
And were there any other songs that came close to the song? Because I can't even imagine any other songs being considered.
Yeah, I mean, I literally pulled up a Spotify list when I was initially playing just to see which ones we were considering. We were looking at Bee Gees, I Laugh in Your Face, Pink Floyd's Shine On You Crazy Diamond. We were looking at Sonny Bono's Laugh at Me, which is an amazing song. If you guys don't know that one, it's really fun. Steve Miller Band's The Joker.
Yeah.
Little 2 nail on the head there.
Yeah.
We considered, what else is here? Patsy Cline's I Fall to Pieces. Ella Fitzgerald's Into Each Life Some Rain Must Fall.
Wow. What would you say was the second runner-up? I'm gonna pull that up on my Spotify and play it.
Oh my God. Well, it's better for the next one because again, it's hard because we remix them so much they don't sound. So let's play the next one because the next one I know we had 2 in contention that went really far.
So this is the open mic trailer?
Yes.
Okay, gonna play that now.
Can you please stop bothering my kid?
Sorry.
Arthur, I have some bad news for you. This is the last time we'll be meeting.
You don't listen, do you? You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts.
And finally, in a world where everyone thinks they can do my job, check out this guy.
When I was a little boy and told people I was going to be a comedian, everyone laughed at me. Well, no one's laughing now.
You can say that again, pal.
It's so awful, isn't it?
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed. But I do. And people are starting to notice.
You think this is funny? Is this a joke to you?
Murray, one small thing.
Yeah.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Just that one little line on the end, send in the clowns. That was incredible. Oh, and Mike, yeah, you're muted.
There we go. Yeah, that just that one little chunk of it. So I'm curious how many people actually recognized what song that was while we're playing, while the instrumental is kind of going on. I'm sure it's not as recognizable as most songs, but yeah, it was still a very expensive song, even using it for that little 10-second nugget. So good old Frankie.
Yeah, Frank, it was such a good selection. So what were some of the other songs that you had for that?
Okay, so the reason why I wanted to play this one is this song, we actually had it initially in the teaser. So we made this with Brandon, your boys and girls over at Pitch Hammer. We worked with them for this Send in the Clowns sort of orchestral cover, and then we plopped in the end the Frank Sinatra tidbit. So we decided that as like a musical journey, it made more sense for us to tease with Smile and then have kind of like the next stage of it being like, here we come, Send in the Clowns. So it was actually, we considered Send in the Clowns first, but they wanted to use Smile first. So we ended up kind of swapping it. And this Send in the Clowns version had a much more sort of 3-act structure that we often do in trailers, sort of like an intro, a middle, and a back end, where teasers, song structure wise, can be a little bit different. They can be 2 parts, or they can just be one kind of slow burn. So it worked a little bit better for our storytelling to use Send in the Clowns as a trailer. And as you can tell, it's similar content. You probably saw some repeated shots, but you got a lot more of a sense of who he was, some like key plot points, and maybe some motivations as to why he is a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes through very strong.
Right. So for us musically, you have to think about what your purpose is in the storytelling. And for teasers, you often get to use a lot more lyrics. And in trailers, you kind of have to be a little bit more subdued. So I thought that was a good sort of reference. But the other song we were considering for the trailer, which didn't make it, was Judy Collins' version of Turn, Turn, Turn. So to every season, turn, turn, turn. Yeah, it was we have a very amazing version of that ended up going with Send in the Clowns instead. So I liked them both.
Yeah, that could make it sound very interesting. I'm going to play that just really quick. And you remixed it, you said. So you
remixed the crap out of it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. So even if I play the song, it probably wouldn't make sense unless we hear your remixed version.
Right. And Heather and I were talking, because I don't have I'm at home, I don't have my drives and stuff. A lot of the stuff that we do just doesn't exist out in the, I can't go on Spotify and find this remix. You can't find this remix, the teaser song or the trailer song. They often don't get released into the world. They're kind of one-off uses. So I know in video games, often the stuff that you guys do become releases, right, Brandon? You guys do end up doing some of those cool stuff and like putting them out, but very rarely happens in trailers.
Yeah, not really for us either. I think there's been the occasionals where a label will release it. For instance, this New Order track, Trent and Atticus actually want to release that. They're working with Warner Bros. To do that. But typically, no. Typically, you hear it here and that's it. Yeah. So similar.
So, and since we're over on you, Brandon, let's go back. You had another trailer, and this is a bigger mix, you said.
Yeah, so this is the Call of Duty multiplayer trailer. It might just say MP trailer in your file, but this is the remix of Notorious by Biggie.
All right, let's show this one.
Threat neutralized.
You're here because you're the best special forces NATO has to offer.
You're all that keeps the world from turning to cinders, comrades.
We work off the books.
Operate in the shadows.
To keep the wolves at bay.
Today, we reshape the world.
What the fuck?
Miami.
Let them come.
Big Papa kick the war around. Jack no love force of other vibe. Only repercussions in your mouth. Split clip all the time. Big Papa kick the war around. Real flows, and that's how it goes. Go, go, go!
It's time to punch that top guard.
Secure the sub.
I'll take care of this.
Strike inbound. Evasive maneuver. Ah, shit. Soviet convoy disabled.
I'll drive.
Big Papa kick the war around. And that's how it goes.
Keep pushing. No, over here.
War flows, and that's how it goes.
It's really awesome. Very
Yeah,
incredible.
wow. We were pleased with the way that one came out. Since you've been asking the question, the other song that we were closely looking at was a remix of War Pigs by Sabbath, which is completely different than Biggie. But both were great. I think we still want to try and use War Pigs for something else. We just really leaned into this one and are pleased with the outcome.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's like you deconstructed the song, but you just used that lyric, Notorious. That was
Yeah,
the point across. It was very simple.
yeah. A lot of work went into that mix. It may not seem like it, but I think we had them working on Pitch Hammer, is the one that did that one. I think they spent several months of labor on getting that to the right point. But they did a great job. Funny enough, Annie, I feel like we work with Pusher on almost everything. This was my first time working with Pitch Hammer was on this particular mix. And I plan to work with those guys again. They were absolutely awesome.
Well, I'm going to play a little bit of War Pigs just because I want to hear it and see what you guys might have been looking for there. So we'll play a little bit.
Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction, in the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
Curious what it sounded and looked like together a little bit.
Yeah, no, that works great by itself, right? But
Yeah.
we had the remix came out great too, but that one's pretty obvious when you hear some lyrical cues. We were also trying to hit the era, because if you notice, we were flashing the dates up on the screen. We were trying to hit that, call it 80s era, even though we missed that mark on Notorious, but we felt like it was close enough and gave it a retro feel, and just thought visually it worked great. So, but yeah, I mean, you can see just the way that song leads in and hits. It's one of those songs. It's perfect for our action style of a trailer.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say that for the audience, for anyone that, I know Annie had some songs, she mentioned additional ones. Go back and look at these trailers and compare them to the song that way and see like why they might have chose those songs. That's something I'll do often when I get a brief in, especially if I get video, when I can take a number of songs and just kind of place them and see how it feels, and if it's getting that right, it's hitting the message right, it's getting the right tempo with all of it. It really kind of helps me to kind of get into what works best. Let's see here. So David, I think you had one more Volvo spot. Was there a different one you wanted to show?
You know, I just gave you different lengths.
Different lengths? Okay.
There are a lot on YouTube though.
There are quite a few. Yeah, there's a lot here. It's pretty awesome. You want to watch one of your longer versions?
Sure.
60? We have a few extra minutes, so I figure we show one more thing. And then the audience, if anybody has any questions, just let us know, throw it in the chat. So I'm going to show this 60-second Volvo.
Do you recall, not long ago, we would walk on the sidewalk, innocent, remember, all we did was care for each other. But the night was warm, we were bold and young.
Uh-oh.
Bold and young. All around the wind blows, we would only hold on to let go. Blow a kiss into the sun, we need someone to lean on. Blow a kiss into the sun, all we need is somebody to lean on. All we need is someone to lean on. All we need is someone to lean on.
Such a pretty spot. So last questions, couple of things. Are there any suggestions you would give to anyone, musicians who are creating music in this space or creatives who are pitching music to you? Any suggestions on what would help them to do that best?
I guess I would say something that, you know, you brought up earlier, like what tone are you looking for, what kind of pacing you're looking for, and we say, you know, it varies between project, but I think like the bigger idea behind that is, as you can see, we all showed pieces that we worked with music that the way it initially wasn't what the end product was, right? So David basically did a cover of a very well-known like electronic pop song, and Brandon did some like crazy remixes, and I did some crazy remixes. So we often work with sort of like professionals in that sort of regard to take music and sort of make it more cinematic or make it work better for video games, fill in that action. You know, I often get people who will send me music that they trailerize, and it's not great because it's hard to figure out how the sections that you're going to be working on. So my advice is, what I'm often looking for in music is authenticity and something that feels special, because I can always trailerize it. I can always take it and be like, that is a beautiful message that I want to like, that works so well for my film or the ad I'm working on. And that we can always make it into something different. So sometimes people try and make music for film or make music for TV, and sometimes you can hear that. So being authentic and special is, I would say, the number one thing I look for, because we can always work it, you know, especially if you have stems.
Absolutely. Well, it's like the difference of, you know, being a producer and an engineer for music. You're going to be have a really good skill set for that. And that's the same for trailerizing songs. You don't just kind of dabble in that.
Mm-hmm. And it's usually to a project. It's so specific, right? So it's tough, even though like we get trailerized remixes all the time and they're great, but there are times where, you know, it's just, we don't necessarily need the music to work right away because we obviously are, you know, cutting and pasting and changing things. So when something just has a great, special, unique, and authentic feel, it helps.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts, guys, on that question?
Excuse me. Yeah, that's a good point. To Annie's point, like we typically don't take something that's already been trailerized that was sent to us. We typically like to take something and work with it directly so that we can match the creative the way we want to match it. I think back to your question, I think it had to do with the advice you give for to get that music out there, right? Yeah. Obviously, I think we're all inundated on a regular basis with a lot of music that comes in. It's really hard to go through and listen to it. Oftentimes, it comes down to timing. You know, if I've just heard something or recently seen something in my inbox or what have you that I might have flagged or starred, it's just sort of that top of mind, top of brain. So I think my advice would be is just to be, you know, to make sure you have the right people pitching your music at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big part of it. I also just generally from what you receive, to build on that, Brendan, you know, being inundated with tons of tracks, it's always quality over quantity. I'd rather you send me 2 or 3 songs that touch even 1 or 2 of the specific themes I asked for, instead of getting a folder of like 15 tracks, because I'm going to listen to all of them, especially if it's a lyric search. I'm going to pull up the lyrics, I'm going to listen to the track and read the lyrics. So it saves us a lot of time if we can go through a pile that's been kind of really tailored to the brief we send out.
Yeah, totally. Well, we have some questions from the audience I want to get to before we finish up today. The first one is, any new projects or games you're working on now or for the fall that you can talk about? I'll add to that.
So for us, we've already announced, or at least have our trailers out for the projects we have coming out. Call of Duty, which you've now seen. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 just came out 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. We have our Crash Bandicoot game came out today. So those are 3 major ones. But now with Call of Duty, we have a free-to-play version of that coincides with our annual release. So now what we do is we do 6 seasons a year. So every 2 months, we have like a really big push on something new. And we're really treating these like our mainline release. We've always had our, call it, you know, Q4 mainline release. That's our big console game. But now that we have this free to play that coincides with it, and we pull in these seasons, as far as trailers go, I'm doing more than we've ever done, and more on a large scale. So, and each season is going to be a little bit different, have a different unique need as to the style of music that we're going to be looking at. So I just have to take those one at a time as to what that's going to be or look like. But it's keeping us incredibly busy. So as far as it goes with trailers, we're pumping out more than we've ever done over the years currently.
It's amazing. And we heard it we had a gaming trailer just before this, and we heard that there's something like 80% of United States citizens have a game in their house and somebody's playing a game, and that it's just gone up exponentially over the last few years. So I'm sure that's why we're seeing that.
6 months, quite frankly, as well.
Amazing. So another question is from an independent trailer producer, and they want to know if they should go in-house, like at a company like Pusher, or work to create their own client relationships directly with folks like you.
That's a great question. I'll jump in first. I think that comes down to whether or not you feel like you have those contacts already. there's several producers globally that we work with on a regular basis. And quite frankly, we've just gotten to where we go back to the same people because we know and trust their work. You know, there's some that are independent, call it producer remixer type guys. And then there's the you know, slightly more known companies. You have your pushers that have really taken the lead, I feel like, in sort of the trailerized versions of music. But I think that's just going to come down to whether you feel like you can keep that business coming in regularly if you go independent. But if you can, absolutely, you know, more power to you on that.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon. If you've got the relationships, do it. But always going in-house someplace is probably going to get you more opportunities because it's as one person, it's impossible to kind of know everything that's going around. So it will give you, so I'd say do both as long as whatever deal you have set up is non-exclusive. That's something that can totally work. But, I know there's definitely some producers I found in like working with someone in-house that I would have never heard of. And now, 5 years later, there's somebody I work with independently. So it also just depends on like what your certain style is too. So I just think in-house gives you a lot more opportunities, but working one-on-one with people too is sometimes a little better.
Nice. The last question, I'm going to throw this over to you, David. What percentage of music, what percentage of what you use are from a library? And have you been using library music since COVID more often?
It really varies on the budget for the production and honestly how much emphasis there is from a client or an account standpoint on making that piece of work like truly stand out. And we do plenty of content that's essentially going to be a 6-second or 15-second buffer on a social post on YouTube or Instagram. Those types of smaller kind of quick turnover projects are definitely library heavy. We'll look into some, clearing stock music, production music. But I think for us, we like to open up the playing field as much as possible. I like, even if it is a limited budget, I don't like to immediately say, okay, it's got to be stock music. We can only afford stock. If there's a way to get clever, if there's like a composer that, you do have like an independent composer who you have a relationship with and they're cut out for the brief, we like to give those people opportunities as well.
Yeah. And Annie, Brendan, what do you want to touch on that question as well?
Yeah. So for us, I use a lot of library tracks just because we pump out so many trailers. We have an in-house, call it an in-house ad agency, right? It's a, art directors, producers, etc., editors who produce a lot of trailers that like sometimes we'll just want to, put out a video that's just promoting, call it a new weapons pack or a new, skin, and it's not like a main asset. So to David's point, it's going to be a smaller budget, and we just automatically, and usually short turnaround time, sometimes same day, sometimes, a day or two. So going to a library where we know we have pre-negotiated fees and we know that we can just literally turn it around in hours is the only feasible option.
I hear that. Last comment, Annie, on that?
Oh, we use libraries all the time. And, I feel like maybe we look at the word libraries as maybe like a bad word, but we work with premium libraries and other kind of libraries that have excellent music. People are getting live orchestration done and stuff like that. We just have more opportunity to use some of more of that score-like cinematic stuff. So I would say we're probably 50-50, or even in one trailer, you're using both, right? But yeah, it definitely depends on budgets. And when you're working with some of the streamers who have these blanket deals, we often source that way to kind of help us sort of pad and find more utilitarian types tracks that are in the front that set up comedy for you. And you don't necessarily need something that's custom or is lyrical, but we use libraries all the time and we love our libraries.
That's actually a really
save the day all the time.
Really good point. There's a misconception that library music or stock music won't have what you're looking for. You can find some excellent music in the library, and there's some really talented composers who are writing for those libraries. So it's about looking for what you need and finding it.
Yeah, agreed.
Totally. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you being here for the panel. Thank you to all our viewers who had and all of their questions. For everybody that's watching, stick around. We got the case study in film and TV coming up next. And then we'll have a few other things going on this evening. So thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.